So threat intelligence is basically getting an understanding of an attacker or an adversary. So we have an organization here that is migrating to the cloud. And in order to migrate successfully and in order to prevent any type of future attacks, we're going to use the attack matrix to gather threat intelligence on APT groups who might target this particular sector. So what is an APT? APT is basically an advanced persistent threat. So this question, this it also says that particular sector. So when we think of APT, sector is very important. So there's different groups out that hate the fact that an organization does what it does. For example, I could go on. So of course we have the US government and we have people that hate the way the US government is run and they hate whatever for whatever reason. There's a difference in what they believe. So they believe that the only way to even the playing field or whatever is to consistently try to oppose a threat to whatever government entity it may be, maybe DOD, maybe Department of Justice, whatever it is. So there's particular groups that attack particular organizations. So let's say we have a group that targets private sector companies like Netflix, for example. It's not going to be the same type of group that's going to target a government, a government organization. So when we think of advanced persistent threat, it's a group or groups of people that consistently try to breach CIA by doing different things like tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTP. So basically, we have a tool which is like the attack matrix, and this is for like enterprise. So any organization. So for example, it has 14 techniques or 14 different techniques that are listed here. So we have reconnaissance, we have resource development, we have initial access, execution, persistence, the list goes on, lateral movement. So let's say that we have in this example, we have a organization that is in the aviation sector. So I more than likely deals with like airplanes and things like that. Uh, and there's specific groups that target aviation. So what we're going to do is we're just going to basically try to find out information that'll help us better migrate to the cloud and avoid these groups, these APT groups who are going to be targeting these particular sectors because uh, no group is safe. So you ask yourself, why does the organization pay so much money to secure? Why do they pay cybersecurity professionals so much money? It's because there's consistently people that do not like what an organization is posing. Just like some people don't like a certain team, they don't like a certain NBA team, or they don't like a certain restaurant, or they are particular about buying a certain type of car, whatever you may have it. So the first question is, what is a group that targets your sector who has been in operation since at least 2013? So we're going to perform threat intelligence with the attack framework. So there's a group that particularly targets aviation. So I'm going to go to groups, and I'm literally just going to um, do a search, and let's see what we get. So aviation, and we get APT 33333, and basically is a success. APT 33 is a suspected Iranian threat group that has carried out operations since at least 2013. So there we go. It's the Iranian threat group in Iran. The group has targeted organizations across multiple industries in the United States, Saudi Arabia, and South Korea, with a particular interest in the aviation and energy sectors. So this is the group APT33. And just to hone in on what I was saying before, this is one group. But then let's look at another group, the one immediately above it. APT32 is a suspected Vietnamese-based threat group that has been active since at least 2014. The group has targeted multiple private sector industry as well as foreign governments, dissidents, and journalists, with a strong focus on Southeast Asia like Vietnamese, Laos, Cambodia. So these are two different groups with two different motives. So their sector is aviation. Here is more focused on maybe private sector. So we're not going to, we wouldn't see that this group is going to try to attack a private sector. So it's basically what this framework is doing is it's showing us how our particular sector can be a threat, can be vulnerable to a group. So there's a group out there. So any group, let's say there's a anything, any type of thing you can think of. There's some type of adversary that doesn't like what you're doing and wants to expose, not even just expose, but just, make life hell for the organization. So their answer for this will be APT 33. The next question is, does this group use Stuxnet? So Stuxnet is a malicious computer worm first uncovered in 2010. What does the Stuxnet virus do? After penetrating a Windows system, Stuxnet infects files belonging to Siemens and disrupts their communication, modifies code, and installs malware blocks. So it's very powerful. So if we click on APT 33, we'll get more information. And pretty much we'll see the techniques that they used, which can get very deep. They have used HTTP for command and control. They've used WinRAR to compress data. So many different things. So I'm basically going to do Command F again. And let's see if they have any information on Stuxnet. And if I spell that right. So they have techniques used, software. More than likely, if they used it, we would see Stuxnet here, and I don't see it. So they use a lot of different things. They use Stone Drill. I know there's one I saw, Mimikatz, which is pretty common for access token manipulation. They use Empire, bypass user account control. Oh man, it's a very powerful tool. So let's see. Enterprise techniques used. Domain enterprise. Has used HTTP. Okay, so I'm gonna say nay. Maybe there's something I'm not finding. Okay, so they do not use Stuxnet, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of organizations that use, well, a lot of, not organizations, but a lot of the adversaries that use Stuxnet. So as your organization is migrating to the cloud, is there anything attributed to this APT group that you should focus on? If so, what is it? So we're migrating to the cloud. Is there anything attributed to this APT group that you should focus on? So that's very specific. So we're migrating to the cloud, of course. So let's see what cloud information we have. So as we can see, the software they've used is one is called Empire. So let's take a quick look. Empire is an open source cross-platform remote administration and post-exploitation framework. by public hacking. So is there much about cloud? So let me go back here. Let's type in cloud again, see what we get. So we see cloud accounts has compromised Office 365 accounts, which is Office 365 is basically Outlook, but in the cloud. Let's see. What is it? Cloud accounts. All right, so let's see what's has compromised Office 360 accounts in tandem with a ruler. Let's see, is a tool to abuse Microsoft Exchange services. So let's keep looking. All right, so back here we are looking, it's pretty much abuses Microsoft Exchange services. So that's what we got. So cloud accounts. What is the tool associated with this technique? And it's going to be RULER, ruler. I'm interested in ruler because I feel like it could be very powerful. So it's on GitHub. It's executed via the command line. And the creators created a defensive tool. Interesting. But the main thing can be used to dump the gal. So enumerate, gather information on Exchange users and dump the gal. Global address list. Okay. All right. Per the detection tip, what should you be detecting? So they have the framework. MITRE attack framework has a, what is it called? A detection tip. Let's see. Let's go back. So let's see, what should we be detecting? Let's go back to ruler. Detection. So let's look for a detection tip. So detection tip. So we see tactics, defensive evasion, persistence, privilege escalation, initial access. Mitigations, detection. All right, there we go. This is what we should be looking at. Monitor for suspicious account behavior across cloud services that share account. Initial construction of a new user login session. All right, let's see. Yeah. Login session metadata. So we're monitoring for abnormal malicious behavior, such as accessing information outside of the normal function of the account. Atypical hours. So this particular one, Let's look and see if we can find detection tip. It's here somewhere. I'm just not looking hard enough. Let's see. Detection tip. Nothing. All right, let's see. Tactics, platforms. So this is the platforms, obviously. Azure, AD, Google Workspaces, infrastructure as a service, Office 365, and software as a service. So per the detection, so where are detection tips located in this framework? So let's see. Detection tips. I feel like it's right in my face. Defense evasion. So let's go back to ruler, because I feel like that's where most of our answers are going to be answered. So we got cloud accounts. Let's go to ruler. Platforms. We got there. Techniques used, groups that use this software. Let's see. What exactly is it looking for? Section tip. Let's see. There has to be something on here. Nothing. One thing I'll say, this website does freeze a lot of detection. Probably because it's a database full of information. Detection. All right. Okay. Not ruler. I mean, they created not ruler. Defensive tool called not ruler to detect its usage. I just have no idea what per the detection tip. So we see the detection tip for ruler. All right, so in order to detect detection, so it's looking for the detection for not for ruler. Obviously, that's like the actual tool that's used, but instead like valid accounts with cloud accounts, which is a tool that APT33 is a vulnerability that they look to exploit. Detection would be to detect abnormal or malicious behavior, which is obvious, such as accessing information outside of the normal function of the account or a typical hours. So I think it's this behavior. I think that's going to be wrong. Okay. So that's that. So basically, now that as a threat analyst or doing threat intelligence, security analyst, basically, I was able to give, I guess, stakeholders or management information about what would happen, um, what's the possibilities of us migrating to the cloud, and based on these informations, we can secure our Office 365, whether we're using Azure. We would secure it with these things in mind. We would secure it knowing that there's a threat group that specifically hunts after aviation, and they already know that because they have probably had to deal with them with their other services. APT33 also still does aviation, so I'm sure there's other factors in their systems that they need to secure with these types of information. Um, there's also the information about cloud accounts and the technique that they can possibly use, and a detection tip would be monitoring for abnormal or malicious behavior. And this affects these platforms: Azure, Google Workspace, IaaS, Office 365, SaaS. So I guess when the security analyst or when the organization is like performing their when they're deploying this, whenever they start the project, they're gonna have to keep these things in mind. These are gonna be major concerns. So this is what threat intelligence is. It's basically knowing the attacker, knowing the adversary, and then knowing how to counterattack, or not even counterattack, but how to move accordingly.